Hey everyone, I want to share some of my um, events that happened during the time that I was raising my children. Um, I have 7 children, 3 of which are my biological children, um, and then I have 4 bonus children. And I just want to open up a conversation on parenting, uh, dealing with children, dealing with stepchildren, or bonus children, if you want to call them that. Um, I think that this is a conversation worth having. And I think we should just be open and honest. And I want to be open and honest, and I don't expect for everyone to agree with my methods. Um, However, I think there are some fundamental principles that, when implemented in the parent child dynamic, whether it's um, biological child or bonus child, I think when when the principle is implemented, the results are the same. But I'm going to open it up with a scenario that actually happened. And I'm going to give you 2 different scenarios. Now, this was scenarios with my daughter, who was my firstborn from a previous marriage, who also lived with me, that made the 7. And it was between her and my wife. And I don't know how the dynamic is between a woman and a daughter who is not her biological daughter, or a child who is not her biological child. I I understand it, and I know it from my end, being a stepfather to 3 boys and a girl who is not my seed, uh, who I love just the same. And just to fast forward, we all now get along great. We come together, there's harmony, there's love, there's no subject that we don't talk about. We can talk about many different subjects, um, even subjects that other families don't want to touch. We can talk about it. And everybody gets along and loves one another. We just rented an Airbnb in Orlando, where my daughter now lives, and all of us came together, and it was beautiful. It was harmony, but it wasn't like that all the time, and it wasn't like that during the time that the I'm going to call it the relationship house was being constructed. It wasn't like that, because construction is dirty, and sometimes construction is hard. However, the outcome is beautiful. But just to give you a scenario, I'm going to give you 2 actual situations that happened between my daughter and her stepmother, which is my wife still to this day, and how I address that. And I would like to know, what do you think on both situations? Was I right or was I wrong? First situation, I came up in a household where I had older sisters. And anytime my parents left us with the older sisters had the right and the free reign to discipline us when we were wrong. And we didn't think anything about it. In fact, we would rather get a whooping by them and pray that they don't say anything to our parents, because if they had to whoop us and then tell our parents, then it really got bad. So when you come up under certain things, sometimes, we bring these things into our marriage and it's subconscious. That's just what happens. So anyway, me and my wife was going out on our date night, and our two boys together were babies, and we left them with my daughter, who was a late teenager at that time, 16, 17, something like that. And I said the same exact thing that I heard my parents say. And I would always tell her, they act up, I'm holding you responsible. You do what you have to do to make sure they mind you in our absence, because if something goes bad, I'm coming to you as the responsible party. And in that, you have the right to discipline them. So I'm not home one day, and my wife is there, and I guess the kids were in her room, and I don't know whether they were getting a little sassy with her or saying something, whatever. But anyway, she threatened to spank them. She just threatened to spank them if they didn't line up. So my wife overheard it, and she came in the room. And I'm going to try to make this story quick, because I got to tell you two stories about these same two women. But anyway, my wife came in the room, said, no, you're not going to spank these kids. I brought these kids into the world. You're not going to spank these kids. And my daughter said, well, my daddy said that if they act up, I have the right to spank them. And she's like, no, you don't have the right to spank them. Only I and your father do. And my daughter, being stubborn, as she can be at times, she kept telling my wife, but my daddy said, but my father said. And it escalated to the point to where they were in each other's face, and my stepson had to come in between them because he loves both of them, and kind of not let them be like they were about to get into a physical altercation. And my wife told her, and I'm not going to go into every detail, but basically, emphatically, I don't care what your father said. You're not going to lay a hand on these two children, period. Right? So anyway, so I find out about it from my stepson, from, Michelle. I'm sorry. I asked her what happened. I shouldn't use her wife. I shouldn't use my wife's name on the video. But anyway, I asked her what happened. She told me. Asked my daughter what happened. She told me. And I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about it. I did tell her that. So she was following what I told her. So I went to my wife and I said, listen, I said, if you have a problem with what I say, and you have a problem with any decision or choice I make, or any instruction I give to the kids, you come to me. Do not come to the child and stop them from carrying out or executing what I've given them the privilege to execute. I said, I was pretty upset about it. And I was a little bit more emphatic and maybe somewhat threatening when I said it. I said, this can never happen again, period. If I give them the right to do something, you don't agree with it, you come to me. You don't go to them and come against me in their face. Because now you're coming against me. And I say, you're going to have a problem with me. And it's not going to be pretty, right? So, my wife got upset. You're taking up for your child, this and that. I heard, I said, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm taking up for my child. Yeah, you're not being fair. blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, fast forward. This is now, was I right? I'll let you decide. Was I right by coming and confronting my wife and telling her that her behavior is not would not be tolerated? So now, as you answer that question, second scenario, same two women, but a few years later. I think my daughter probably was 21, maybe. They get into another standoff because my wife asked her to remove something from the bathroom. And my daughter said, well, I didn't leave it in there, so I'm not going to move it. And she said, well, who left it in there? And I think she told her one of the boys left it in there, but he wasn't there. He wasn't home. He left. She said, well, just go ahead and move it. And she's like, no, I'm not going to move it. And she's like, she called her by name and said, hey, I am telling you to move that out of the bathroom. And my daughter was like, well, I'm not going to move it because I didn't put it in there. You know, wait to whoever it is, come back home and have them to move it, but I'm not going to move it. And that was another standoff. And my wife just totally got upset and called me. I was at the store. I come home. My daughter is walking around the parking lot of where we live, 9:30 at night. My wife's in the house. She's mad. All I'm hearing her saying, get this woman out of my house. I want this woman out of my house, right? So I asked her what went on, and, same story. I went outside. I'm talking to my daughter, and she's like, Dad, she's wrong. She's wrong. How is she going to make me move something that I did not leave in there? How she's going to do that? How she's going to do that? And I'm listening to this, and then this is what just came up. I said to her, to my daughter, I said, listen, I said, I understand that you were not the one who left it in there. However, I left her. When I'm not here, she is the adult in charge. And if she is and she gives you a directive to do something, I said, even if you think she's wrong, I said, just do it and then come and tell me, and then I will address the situation and talk to her about it. I said, but you don't have the right, even though you're 21, you don't have the right to defy her and say, no, I'm not going to do what you told me to do. I said, you just don't have that right. I said, I love you. You're my firstborn. And, I said, but you have to, as a young woman, I said, I'm going to explain something to you. I said, one day you will be another man's responsibility. But my first commitment is to my wife, not you as my firstborn daughter. I said, the days of my commitment to you as daddy protector is waning because you're getting older and you're going to be in your own place and you're going to be married and you're going to be another man's responsibility. I said, but I still have to be here and hold to my commitment to my wife. I said, so while you're still here, because guess what? I said, this is not your house. This is her house. It's her house. I said, it's not your house. You are moving out eventually. You're 21. I said, you are going to have to, while you're here, humble yourself to the woman of the house, which is my wife. And she said, but she was wrong. And I told her this kind of popped out of nowhere. I said, she is the woman of the house, and she has the right to be wrong in her house. I said, okay, you want to say she was wrong? Okay, I'll agree with you. She's wrong. She was wrong. But she's in her house. And she has the right to be wrong in her house. And I said, and I always call my daughters little girl. I said, little girl, if you don't understand this and you cannot submit yourself to the woman of the house, then you have to leave tonight. And I will take you out of here tonight. Because I don't allow insubordination, period. And she is the woman of the house. Now, did I handle that right? Did I handle it wrong? The outcome, as I noticed from that day, they started to get along a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better. And now they talk all the time. My daughter no longer lives here. She lives 2 hours away. But she even refers to my wife as her mom. And they talk, they talk ideas and talk about different things that interest them. And they have this whole thing going on now, but it started back then. So tell me, well, I noticed it started after that last incident. And I think that was the very last incident they had. So you got incident number 1, incident number 2. Tell me what you think. Was I right? Was I wrong? Or should I have handled it differently? Maybe it's not a right or wrong. Maybe it's a both and. Maybe you may say, you should have also did this or that. But leave it in the comments. Okay? Thanks. Until next time.